Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're digging into the 100-year story of one of America's most iconic and most debated music genres. We're going to trace the wild path of country music from its really humble beginnings all the way to its spot at the very top of the charts. Okay, just look at this. On one side, you have what they originally called hillbilly music, right? Fiddles, banjos, the whole deal. On the other, you've got these massive chart toppers with hip-hop beats and slick electro-pop production. So the big question is, how on earth did one genre become both of these things? How did it go from old mountain folk tunes to sold-out global stadium anthems?
So, to understand that, we have to ask, where did country music even come from? Well, the answer isn't as simple as a cabin in the mountains. The genre's DNA is actually, and kind of surprisingly, global.
Now, what's so fascinating here is how this just shatters the myth of country as some single pure sound. From the very beginning, back in the 1920s American South, it was a total melting pot. You had poor white and black communities living and working together, sharing their musical traditions. It was pulling from everywhere: the folk ballads of British and Irish immigrants, the blues and spirituals of African Americans, and even sounds from Mexican and Hawaiian music. I mean, that classic steel guitar sound, its roots are in Hawaiian music from the 1920s. Wild, right? Okay, so you've got this incredible blend of sounds bubbling up. But how did it actually get captured on a record and, shared with the rest of the world? Well, that's where a whole new industry was born. The 20s through the 40s were just absolutely foundational. First, radio shows like the Grand Ole Opry started beaming this music right into people's living rooms. Then, boom, 1927 hits and you have the Bristol Sessions, what everyone calls the Big Bang of country. That's where they recorded the two founding families, the traditional Carter family and the bluesy Jimmie Rodgers. Then Hollywood gets a hold of it and you get the singing cowboys. And by the 40s, things get a little grittier, a little more electric. That's honky-tonk, coming straight out of the bars of Texas and Oklahoma, with guys like Hank Williams leading the charge. All right, so after World War II, the genre hits this huge turning point. America was changing fast, and country music had a choice to make about what it wanted to be. And it kind of had an identity crisis, splitting into three very different camps. So, on one side, you had the industry itself. Producers in Nashville, Tennessee had a big idea. Let's make country music appeal to everybody, not just its core audience. And the result was the Nashville sound. They basically sanded down all the rough edges of honky-tonk, brought in these lush string sections and smooth background choirs for artists like Patsy Cline, and just like that, turned country into a multi-million-dollar machine. And this right here, this captures the essential conflict, the tug of war that has defined country music ever since. You've got the polished commercial sound aiming for the pop charts on one side, and on the other, you have the raw, gritty sound of the barroom. This push and pull between polish and authenticity, that's the engine that just keeps driving the genre forward. So the first rebellion was a fusion. In the 1950s, artists down at Sun Records in Memphis, we're talking Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, they blended country with this new electrifying energy of rock and roll and created rockabilly. Then, about 2 decades later, a second rebellion fires up, but this one was a reaction against Nashville. The outlaw movement, with figures like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, they tapped into that anti-establishment vibe of the 70s. They rejected the pop sound and took country right back to its gritty, honky-tonk roots. And what's funny is, Willie Nelson himself pretty much admitted the whole outlaw label was basically a marketing gimmick someone wrote in an article. But that image, that idea, man, it resonated with fans who are just craving something that felt a little more real, a little more authentic. Okay, let's jump to the 1990s. This is when country artists took the pop-friendly ideas from Nashville, mixed in the epic energy of rock and roll, and took the whole thing to a completely new level, turning a distinctly American genre into a global phenomenon. 40 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how many copies Shania Twain's album Come On Over sold across the world. She and artists like Garth Brooks, they basically cracked a new code. They blended traditional country themes with just massive stadium rock showmanship. They weren't just playing theaters anymore. They were selling out arenas everywhere and putting country music on the world stage. And that brings us to the 21st century, where the lines have gotten so blurry they've practically disappeared. And this has led to incredible new sounds, explosive growth, and, what some have called a full-blown identity crisis. So here's the crucial point. Country music today is more popular than it's ever been. I mean, look at this chart. By 2023, nearly half of all Americans were listening to country. This is not a niche genre anymore. It is an absolute dominant force in mainstream culture. And this huge wave of popularity is really being fueled by an incredible diversification of sounds. I mean, the genre has just shattered into all these different pieces. You've got the huge pop anthems of Taylor Swift, the whole party vibe of bro country, the genre-bending country rap of Lil Nas X, the super respected Americana of Chris Stapleton, and now you even have Beyoncé exploring country soul. But you probably guessed it, all this fusion has kicked off what many people are calling a civil war inside the genre. It's that same exact tension we've been talking about, tradition versus innovation. But now it's all playing out on a global, multi-billion-dollar stage. And these are the big questions right at the heart of that debate. Was bro country a fun trend or a lyrical misstep? Did a song like Old Town Road really belong on the country charts? And when huge artists like Beyoncé come into the space, are they expanding the genre or are they diluting what it means? It all forces us to ask, is country defined by a certain sound, like a fiddle or a steel guitar, or is it defined by its themes of storytelling and working class life? When you look back at the whole story, from its roots in folk blues and immigrant ballads all the way to its current place in global pop culture, it's pretty clear that the only constant in country music has always been change. In a lot of ways, the story of country music is the story of America itself. It's always arguing about its identity, it's always blending new and unexpected influences, and it's always writing its next verse. The only question is, what do you think that verse is going to sound like?